We are ready to talk about directions for Review and Preview 6.1.3 Part 1. For question 33, it starts by asking you to use a ruler and draw a line that is exactly 4 inches long. So on your answer sheet, there's a space here. Use your ruler, make a line exactly 4 inches long. Then it asks you to mark every ½ inch in between. Using that diagram, you're going to answer parts A, B, and C. And for most of those you can count. Part B is going to ask you to mark every 1/4 of an inch, so that will be halfway between your 0 and your half, halfway between your half and your 1. For question 34, it says draw a diagram to show how 9 pieces of licorice fit into a package that holds 5 pieces. So for your diagram, you've got your empty space here. Show me a box where 5 pieces of licorice can fit. Show me a second box where your leftovers will go. That one, of course, won't quite be full. And then don't forget to explain how many boxes it's going to take for those 9 pieces of licorice. For question 35, it shows you a histogram. And the histogram is talking about bowling scores. For part A, using the histogram to figure out how many games there are altogether, you can count the heights of the bars or add those together. So this bin represents 1 game, this one represents 2 and 1, and so on. So we're looking for how many games total for part A. Part B asks between what 2 values did most of her scores fall. So you're trying to figure out the place where most of them fell, and if it's asking you between what 2 numbers, I'll use this bin as an example. For this first one here, I would say this represents scores between 70 and 79. I would not say between 70 and 80. They're from 70 to 79. On part C, what portion of her scores fell between 130 and 140? You can count the number of scores that were between 130 and 140, and then compare that to how many total from part A. So for example, if there's 1 out of 4, you could write it as a ratio or a fraction, 1 out of 4, and just make sure that ratio is in simplest form. So again, how many between 130 and 40 out of how many total? For question 36, you've got some multiplication with fractions. Make sure you copy the problem correctly to start with. See if there's anything that you can cancel. Do we have a numerator and a denominator combination that can both be divided by the same thing other than 1? Try canceling if you can. Then multiply straight across and make sure your answer is in simplest form. For question 37, they're going to give you some points to graph, and you've got this grid here to use. Remember, the first number in the parentheses tells us how many spaces to move to the right. The second number tells us how many spaces to move up. And if we do those in the order that's listed, you're supposed to connect them in that order. And based on the figure that you see, there are blanks on your answer sheet to fill in the length and the width. Those are interchangeable. I'm not picky about which one goes where. So the length and the width should both have labels that are units. Then once you know the length and the width, it's also asking you what would be the area. So we can multiply those two, the length and the width, and that's going to give us our area. Make sure your label for your area is square units.